right, I wanted to talk about a story that you find in various traditions. The story I'm going to be reading is found in the Hindu tradition, and also a version is found in the Jewish tradition. These are the only two traditions that I have, but I'm sure this is found elsewhere. It's also found, the idea is found in the New Testament, in Romans, which is one of Paul's letters, right? He says, all things work together for the good for those that love God, something like that, right? Who are those who are called to God's purpose. Now, these stories from the Hindu and the Jewish tradition basically go on this idea that everything works together for the good, or all things are for the good. And definitely this gets to something that we've been talking about. Those of you who've been following my videos about A Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles is basically saying the same thing, that everything really, all things are lessons God would have me learn. Everything is really for the good. Everything is for my highest good, if I would only be willing to see it that way. Everything is bringing me back to God ultimately. So here's one story. We'll talk more about this idea as we go along. And we also have the quote, you've probably heard that quote, if it's happening to you, it's happening for you. We have a lot of quotes, that are along these lines. So this story, the first story I'm going to be reading is called, I call it The King's Faithful Minister, or The King's Cut Finger. Once upon a time in ancient India, there was a king who had a wise and faithful minister. The king was very happy with the minister, except for one thing. The minister was always saying, everything that happens for the best, or for the good. And the king hated hearing that and could not believe that it was true. Things came to a head one day when the king badly cut his finger. When he asked his minister about it, the minister said, Your Highness, I do not know why this happened, but as I always say, I am certain is for the best. What? The king, still reeling from his badly cut finger, flew into a rage. There will be no more of this nonsense. Guards, put this fool in prison. That's okay, Your Highness. I understand, and I'm sure this is also for the best, the minister said as he was being taken away by the guards. Not long after, the king went hunting in the forest with a small team, but without his minister, who was still in jail. As fate would have it, just as the king was drawing back his bow to fell a deer, a tribesman from a cannibalistic tribe captured the king and took him back to his leader. But when the tribe's leader saw the king and examined him, he pronounced him unfit as an offering to the tribe's deity due to his wounded finger. According to their rules, the offering had to be completely unblemished, otherwise the sacrificial ritual would be for naught. So the tribe let the king go, and he hurried back to his kingdom. Upon returning, he went straight to the jail cell where his minister was being kept. Oh, my dear friend and counselor, he exclaimed, you are so right. It was for the best that I got this terrible cut on my finger. Had I not, I would have been sacrificed by a bloodthirsty tribe in the forest. Here, I am letting you out of this cell right now. That is such good news, the minister was very pleased as he exited the prison with the king. You see, sire, it really is true that things always turn out for the best. Sometimes it is obvious why, as in your case, and sometimes it takes a little discernment to see the connection between events. Yes, and you know what? The king responded enthusiastically. That brings up an important question. I understand why it was for the best that my finger be cut, but I don't understand why your being thrown into prison was for the best. But don't you see, Your Highness, the minister replied forthwith, if you had not put me in prison, I might have been sacrificed by the tribe in place of you. So it was really for the best that I not be with you on your expedition. Thank God I was not. The king was pleased with his wise minister's reply, and from then on, he never questioned his minister's counsel again. And usually we say the end, but I say the beginning. Right? It's the beginning. This, by the way, this is from a book that I'm currently working on. It's 108 stories that are from various traditions, mainly from the Indian and the Jewish traditions, because those are the traditions I know the best. But I have, some of Aesop's fables in here. I have other stories that I have found helpful in my life, and you might as well. This is one of them. And now I'm going to tell you the other story. I'm not going to actually read the story. I'm just going to kind of tell you the story because I haven't finished it yet. But the story is about a rabbi. This is very similar to this story, as you're going to see. The rabbi his name was Nahum Ish Gamzu. He was a famous rabbi from like the first century of the Common Era. So we're talking about around the time of Jesus, or maybe a little bit after Jesus. And he's talked about in the Talmud, and the Talmud was actually centuries later. But the Talmud is talking about rabbis who lived, some of whom lived around the time of Jesus. And Nahum was actually the teacher of one of the greatest rabbis of all time, Rabbi Akiva. And I talked about Rabbi Akiva, or Akiva, in a previous video. Just recently, I talked about Rabbi Akiva, how he was one of these 4 rabbis that went to paradise, or to the Pardes, and he was the only one that came out safely. So Nahum Ish Gamzu was the teacher of Rabbi Akiva. And why was Nahum called Ish Gamzu? Ish Gamzu is like saying he was the Gamzu man. Ish means man. He was the Gamzu guy, right? What is Gamzu? He went around always saying, this also, Gamzu, la tova. This is also for the good. Everything is for the good. Everything that's happening is really for the best, is for the good, just like the minister in the Indian story, right? So here's one story about Nahum Ish Gamzu. So the rabbis really liked Nahum, and they thought, well, Nahum, he's got really good karma. He's got really good energy and good vibes. So we're going to send him on a mission, because the emperor, the Roman emperor, is gonna pass this decree that's not going to be good for Jewish people. So we're going to send Nahum with a gift for the emperor. So they put together this gift that includes like precious jewels and gems, and they send him on his way. So Nahum, and it's a long journey from Jerusalem to Rome, and right before he's about to get to Rome, he stays at an inn. This is Nahum, stays at an inn, and during the night, these 2 thieves, they enter his room, and they search his room, and they find his gift, and they take out all the gems and the jewelry, etc., and they put sand in the box, or the treasure, whatever he was carrying it in. He didn't pack it, by the way. He was just given it to give to the emperor. So they took out all the precious gems and jewels, and they put in sand. So when Nahum gets to the emperor, he presents the emperor with the gift, and the emperor is happy. But then the emperor finds out that it has sand, and he throws Nahum into prison, just like in the Indian story, right? The Nahum gets put in prison. It's a similar story. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. You have basically a king, and the king puts the guy that says this is for the good into jail. And Nahum is like, when he gets put in jail, he's like, Gamzu letova. This is also for the best. This is also for the good. And then it turns out that the emperor has a minister who says to him, look, there was the Jews have there is a story, I forget where it was, maybe in the Bible, somewhere in the Bible, how they throw sand at the enemy, and the sand actually helps the Jewish people win the war. It like turns into some kind of weapon that destroys the enemy. So the minister says to the emperor, hey, maybe this sand actually is that weapon. So the emperor's like, could be, let's try it. So they're fighting this battle, and they try the sand, and the sand actually does work like that way. So the emperor lets Nahum out of prison. He's like, I'm sorry, I realize that the gift you gave me is amazing, and you helped us win this war. So he sends Nahum on his way, and he says, tell your people, all is well between us. And Nahum goes back, and on the way back, the two thieves, he stays at the same inn, and the two thieves actually happen to be the people that own the inn, and they hear about what happened with the emperor, and they what they do, they hear it from Nahum. So what they do is, so Nahum is going on his way back home, and they go to these two thieves go to the emperor with the sand, and they present it to the emperor, and they said, "Here, emperor, here's some sand, that same sand that Nahum gave you." But it turns out that the sand doesn't work, so they get put in prison or they get killed or whatever, and Nahum's like, "Gamzu leptova, this is also for the best." So that's the other story, but you can see how similar they are, and how I think these different traditions borrowed from each other, and borrowing happens all the time in our world, and that's why I wouldn't take these stories too seriously. They're trying to tell you, they have a moral that they're trying to get across. Now, is it true that everything is happening for the best? It doesn't always look that way, right? That's hard to believe. And that's really a question that is a matter of faith. I wouldn't answer that question for you. I think that's for each person to come to that answer for themselves, of whether everything really is happening for the best or for the greatest good. I would hope that it is, but when you look at events oftentimes seem random, and they seem to be not divine in any sense. They seem to be horrible sometimes, tragic, horrible, and a lot of people lose their faith over things that happen in this world, because we wonder how a loving creator could possibly be behind the things that happen in this world. And this is a whole nother subject. I'm not going to answer this question. If you want one answer, the videos I'm doing about A Course in Miracles, I think could help you in that regard. But I think non-dual philosophy can help to answer this question. But I believe A Course in Miracles is ultimately getting at a non-dual understanding of reality. But that's all I'm going to say for now. And I hope you enjoyed the stories. And if you're interested in this book, it's going to be done, hope in the next month or two. I wanted to have it out on my birthday, which is at the end of this month, but I don't think I'm going to get it out by that time. But right now I have about 70 stories. I want to have 108 stories. 108 is the magic number. But I'm happy with the way the book is going so far. And if you'd like a copy of this, even as it is right now, I would love to send you a copy. So let me know. I think some of these stories are really great. And I think those of you who are appreciating this channel would appreciate this book. So let me know, and I'll let you know when the book is really finished. And thanks. See you soon. Bye bye. Shalom.